Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. We are your hosts, Vonnie Herrera and Tamian Dice Hart, the co-founders of Think 3D, and we're glad to come at you with another episode of Thinking Out Loud. Today, we wanted to talk about something a little bit different. As we come out of this kind of COVID space, or actually, we don't really know where we're in it, but as it feels like we should be getting towards the end of it, we have to be thoughtful about how we elevate and how we cast vision. So one of the things that we really wanted to talk about today was visioning and versions, and the idea of being able to cast a vision, one that is broad enough to include people, one that is far enough to be able to allow you to reach past your current circumstances, and one that is deep enough and rich enough that actually means something and has some value for folks. And that's an important component as we talk about going through crisis with culture, and how to emerge from that better and being able to engage your team to do so. So that's what we want to kind of talk about today. When we talk about visioning and that type of thing, what comes to your mind?
Intention. Obviously one of our keywords is having intention. What do you really want? One of the things that we find often and surprising for a lot of folks when we ask them, what is that ideal culture? What is the ideal job? What is the ideal life? Most people could not articulate what that is because they don't take time to have intention about what that is for them. And I can't create it for you. And if you're depending on other people in your environment, your sphere, to contribute to some magical thing that you haven't even taken time to articulate, to think about, to get quiet in your mind. Again, it's one of the things, I think one of the tragedies that I almost guarantee is going to come out of COVID is people have had the time, and very few people how has your vision evolved? What have you discovered? I mean, I got, kids starting back up this week or sort of last week with soccer. So now soccer is back in full fold. I have soccer practice between my two daughters 3 days a week, and then on the weekends. And so now busy is going to be back on the table for a lot of people. And it's rare that we hear people saying, here's a new vision for my life. They're still just allowing themselves to be at effect from what the environment or the world has done for them. And one thing I wanted to just challenge in is as you talked about, the visions and versions related to COVID, thinking outside of that, because if you can grab a hold of this is something Vonnie actually has been talking about quite some time. And he had this thought even pre-COVID. But again, any part of your life, you have to have visions and versions. So that's what comes to mind for me when you think about of visioning. From your aspect, what would you say are some of those starting points of folks to take that next step to have vision personally, professionally, stepping into their potential?
Well, the first thing is just to really just think about the value of having a vision to begin with. And so if somebody right now was to, have all the lights off in their homes, there's certain tasks that they would be able to complete, right? They would probably be able to find their phone because they left it on a nightstand right next to them. They would probably be able to make it to the bathroom because they know how many steps, and they do that at night when they're half asleep or whatever. They would know how to make it to the fridge and open the fridge and be able to get something out of the fridge. There's a certain set of actions that people would be able to take even if they had no light, nothing, no sight of what was happening, right? That they would be able to do. Everything else, for the most part, would be cumbersome. Everything else would be slow, and you would have to feel your way through things, and you would have to tiptoe around things, and you're going to stub your toe, and you're going to hit your head, and you're going to fall sometimes. All of these type of things because you lack vision. You lack the ability to be able to see what it is that you want to accomplish and the things that you need to overcome to get there. Now, for a person to be able to get clear vision where they can see everything that's going to happen, I mean, you got to be Nostradamus for that, right? You're not going to get to that point. But having vision is like turning the lights on for people.
Yeah.
It's like turning the lights on for people. It's saying, listen, guys, we're going over there. We're trying to get that. And between us and that is likely going to be this, and we're likely going to have to navigate that. We're likely going to have to get around this. And then you have to get there. But with the light on, we can get there faster. We can get there smoother, less damage, less problems. We're going to lose less people by casting a vision and putting light into the room. Visioning and versions is just simply being able to say that the next day you wake up, somebody might have reset the room.
Yep.
The elements in the room might be reset. The ottoman that was on the left side is now on the right side, right? That chair that was in front of you now might be behind you. whatever it is. Somebody could reset the room, and you need to cast that vision. That doesn't mean that where you're trying to get is necessarily different. That doesn't mean that what you're trying to achieve is necessarily different. It means that the pathway to get there is different by things that may be in your control and most things that are outside of your control. So the question is, can you vision inversions? Can you not get so caught up in the idea that what you had planned or what you had saw before cannot happen in the same way because those circumstances change, and you feel like your plan has failed and you want to sit down and be frustrated? Or can you quickly realign what your vision is to make sure that it includes new people, if new people are in the equation, a new landscape if your room has been reset, and new circumstances that are inevitable to anybody's growth or change? And so that's what we talk about with vision inversions, is can you adjust that vision while keeping people on that path towards where they're trying to go?
Well, I think in simple, like how many people listening even has the same vision for your life from a year ago? I mean, even take COVID out of it, right? I mean, your vision expands with new people that come into your life. You now watch this new TV show or see new possibilities. Like our vision for our lives is always expanding, as it should, and it's going to evolve. And that's a key word for me, is how is it evolving? Because in evolution, based off of current circumstances, and we're adaptable creatures. The human species is here today simply because it had the high capacity to evolve. Allow for that. For some strange reason, people expect to be some kind of linear path when nowhere ever does anyone that you admire, respect, any level of success that you had in your life, it didn't come by way of comfort. Being uncomfortable, being open to those things, allowing this great thing called flexibility, adaptability, because that the person, we know the person in the 21st century that's going to have high levels of success is going to come by way of being adaptable. That person that's a chameleon to their environment without compromising their values. The chameleon is still a chameleon, still an amphibian. It still knows exactly who it is. It's very intimate with who they are, but it's being able to fold into the environment.
Well, and it's just understanding that everything changes when everything changes, you know? And so like, you know, your capacity changes drastically. Let's just take it right now. If everybody did this experiment, right, the experiment of 10, right? If you decided to take 10 pounds, put it on you or take it off. If you met 10 new people and you did that intentionally, if you read 10 new books, if you had 10 new experiences, if that's all you did, your life would be completely different.
That's the first time I heard you say that. That is a great exercise. Take 20 minutes and do that. Just walk through.
Just 10 on all of those. Your life will change. It would be completely different if you just did those things. You know what I mean? In terms of how you may wake up, get up in the morning, or what it is that you do, what you know, who you have access to, who becomes your best friend or who's your whatever friend. If you just did that, your life would be completely different. And so if you can't adjust your vision to, number one, make space for that, and then also adjusting that. Think about this for a second. When people think about technology, they think about technology in the time that they see it, right? When we were thinking about the Jetsons, we think about flying cars and all that other type of stuff. And we only believe based off of what it is that we can see. Yeah. But there's a chip being designed right now that if it's completed in the next year will change the way everything is made after that. And that flying car might get to us 50 years sooner because of that chip. No one knew that 50 years ago.
No one could have saw it today 20 years ago. Like,
imagine. There's just no way. There is just no way. And when you have quantum leaps in technology, when we have quantum leaps in culture, when we have quantum leaps in all of these different changes, we have to understand that we're always going to be in a level of flux. We're always going to be in a level of change. And change that is constant and change that is necessary is growth.
Yeah. Think about this, and I know one of our favorite quotes talking about Steve Jobs, you know, again, the world is changed by those who are crazy enough to believe that they can actually make those things happen, right? And so in that space, think about, just go down a list of all the things in your life, not all of it, say 5 of the conveniences of life. Think about what Amazon has done to the world, or Apple, or whatever the case is, Facebook. Think about the changes that has happened in the world, the things that we love about our life today, the comforts and all those different things. those things that we enjoy the most in life came by way of a person who took time and saw it here. They closed their eyes. They could see it before that. Go back to, again, Albert Einstein. Imagination is the preview of life's coming attraction. If we can't take time to envision our ideal vision, which again is unique to you as an individual, it involves other people. There's going to be crossover and overlap. There's going to be some level of compromise. But if you can envision what those key tenets are, what those key pillars are, you'll never pick up your finger, pick up anything to make that happen. And so that's the start of this, is saying, having the vision, take the time. You owe it to yourself. Just all of us owe it to ourselves to take time to say, what is that for you? What does that look like? Are you going to get all of that? Maybe not. But what's the alternative?
Right. Well, and that's the other thing too, to add on to that, is that when we talk about visions, that visions allow you to have a loose map for what is going to transpire. Where it is different than a goal, where it's something I'm specifically going to achieve. This is how I see this. And so you don't just want to have a vision for yourself. You want to have a vision for your organization. You want to have a vision for the people that report to you. You want to have a vision for your children. How do you vision their lives panning out? What is your vision for your marriage or your relationship? If you don't have a vision for how you want this to go, for what your expectation is, for what quality will look like to you based on the information you have right now, that will change. The things I thought were important 10 years ago, I don't necessarily think are important now, and vice versa. And so now, how do we vision for those that are in our lives? How do we include them in that vision and then allow it to adjust? One of the things that we talked about even with your daughters is you changing the way that you thought about it versus having dreams for them, versus having a vision for them, which allows for their dreams.
Yes.
That it's not your life.
Yes.
It's their life, but you have a vision for how they want their life to go versus them living out your dreams. They get to live out theirs within the vision that you can see a quality of life for them.
Yeah. So just to put a pin, because I want to get into the version side of this, but to put a pin on the vision side of it, again, every area that you can, again, personally, professionally, your potential, you owe it to yourself. Take time to get a clear vision of what that is. And I'm a person who, I'm a huge goal setter. And so when you think about, goals, again, the beauty of goals are things that happen to help contribute towards the vision. I love the fact that how you gave that distinction of your vision cast a broader net. It doesn't have to say this is the only path. These are the 10 things I need. These are the 10 goals I need to hit there. Because they change. These things change, they're fluid, and allows that flexibility, because when you get so determined on this is the only way or this is the only path, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And so I would all of us, I think every person could benefit from that aspect of taking time to don't go too far out in the future, right? Because again, the world changes. Today looks much different than it did 10 years ago. I could have never envisioned, we're sitting in this new studio that a year ago we would have, this would be a 3-year dream of where we're at right now. But just allow yourself that flexibility, because then you hold yourself accountable, or are allowed to hold yourself accountable. Say, okay, what am I actively contributing to make that happen in your professional space? Because you could say, my job doesn't care about these things, whatever the case is, where you have influence. Leadership is influence. So you have the ability to grab a few people who are like-minded to move it forward within your sphere of friends, within your home life. You have the opportunity to have a conversation about vision, other people's vision, your vision, find out where you align. And that's the thing. I was just having a conversation with a friend. She was sharing that her and her husband are different in certain aspects, but they started with, this is the commonality. When you have commonalities in the workspace, because there's going to be some there, you have commonalities amongst your friend groups, start there. Get to a 10 there,
right? And
then argue about the differences. We want to argue about the differences up front. Go all in on what your current vision is. Get the vision, and then go all in that vision.
Yeah. So when we talk about the version piece of it, again, it's about how we navigate that, how we change it, how we adjust it, how we stay on our toes, how do we stay active. And a lot of times we get flat-footed because we get so locked into one thing, and anytime that one thing does not pan out, we disconnect from what it is. We unplug from the vision. We give up on it. We say, well, now it's spoiled.
Yeah,
that thing I saw that was going to happen didn't happen like I wanted it to happen. Now we're done, and that's absurd. And it's understanding that we have to navigate those things. Those are the things that we got to go there. And if we still have a vision of where we're trying to get, by adjusting that, making those twists and turns and being able to pivot, we can still get to where we're trying to get. We just don't necessarily arrive the way we want to. And one thing that we realize is that there's nothing that will prepare you for the destination like the journey.
Say it again.
There is nothing that will prepare you for the destination like the journey. If we just dropped you where you wanted to be, I promise you, you would not be prepared.
Yeah.
I promise you, you would not be prepared. If you just got what you wanted, we think about all of those things back when we wanted to be, millionaires by X day, arbitrary, number or whatever it is. We get to a point where we get disappointed because we feel like we didn't accomplish what we accomplished. But had we got that, I say all the time, it would have ruined us or we would have ruined it.
We're not sitting here.
We weren't prepared for it. We weren't prepared for it. And the journey prepares you. And so when we took this right turn and went to work for Fortune 500 companies and learn how to do this or that, learn how to deal with this frustration or that frustration, that actually brought us closer to our goal. When we had to spend this time and drill down and focus on our marriages or focus on some of our other relationships, that brought us closer to the goal. Or when it felt like we were pivoting over here and we had to change our business model a little bit this way, a little bit that way, they brought us closer to the goal. It turns out that the journey gets you ready for the destination.
Yes, enjoy the journey. I think we talk a lot about, we live in a society that gravitates towards humility much more than it does selfishness, right? And again, this is about says better use, better for everybody. And the audacity that we think that we're so special, that we gravitate towards humility, but we think we're so special that we can just get the result that the other people had to go through all this to get there. The audacity. Read a biography. Read a whatever. Success is not a secret. However you define success, that person that's living out that definition of whatever success that we admire, we want their result without the work. And that to me is crazy. Humility. The audacity that you think you can just get there without the work.
Well, and it's interesting as you even talk about humility, and I think it's understanding the difference between being self-centered and having a centered self, right? Being self-centered means you truly believe that the world is there to bring those things to you. Those things that you want are entitled to you, and thus they should gravitate towards you.
Yeah.
Versus having a centered self and understanding that this world, this life that you're on is through the context of your experience, is through the context of your experience. And in that way, the world does revolve around you. But around you, meaning that whatever it is that you want out there, you have to go get it.
Yeah.
You got to go get it. It's not drawn to you that way. It might be connected to you in some way, but you got to go get it. And that's the difference, is understanding that this is your perspective, that this is your vision, the way you see it is ultimately what reality is to you. And that is about having a centered self. It's about knowing where you're at in the world, but also knowing that you have to go get it. Being self-centered is thinking that those things are supposed to be delivered to you, is that those things are owed to you. Those things are bestowed upon you, and thus they will arrive, versus you having a connection to those things and knowing that you have to go get them because you have the drive and the desire to do so. And so that's the difference. When we talk about visioning and versions, it's about not getting bogged down that things don't lay out the way you want them to, because how could they?
For sure.
Right? How could they? It's a ridiculous notion. It's an unrealistic expectation. And a lot of times that derails people from getting to where they got to get because of it. And so what we want to encourage you to do is version and visions. Adjust that version all the time, every day if you need to, but make sure you have a vision. Make sure you're working towards a vision, but make sure it's representative of the current circumstances. Make sure it's representative of the people who are in the boat. Make sure it's a representation of what your value set is, which some things will adjust here or there. But make sure you're casting a vision. Make sure that it is up to date. Make sure that people are included in it, and it doesn't just allow for your only your perspective.
Yeah.
And make sure that you have the humility and willingness to understand that there is only so much that we can control and only so much we can manage.
For sure. And allow the current version to breathe. Right? I mean, so these things come out all the time. This is a version. How long did it take to create this? How often does a new version drop?
That's a 10.
whatever the case is, it takes some time before the thing comes out. But we want that next thing around the corner. Let that version breathe. And I think so many people get caught up in the contrast. Again, that's one of the things I'm on right now. Embrace the contrast, because contrast often helps us to get clarity, understands what we do and don't want. Most of the stuff, again, most of Think 3D was birthed out of us not seeing good leadership being showcased. It was the contrast of, that's stupid. Why would you do it that way? Is there a better way?
Yeah.
And through that contrast, and this is one of the things, like in a life, we don't want to face hardships. We don't want to face difficulties. We don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to go through the valleys. But the beauty of the peak is only as beautiful as it is in contrast to the valley. If it was just all here, you can go to that same 14,000 foot elevation. You know what it makes so beautiful being 14,000 feet high? The contrast of looking down below. And so when we can look back on that, just embrace that process of, this is part of what is happening. And these are 7 words that I have found great comfort in and challenge everyone to think about. Everything is always working out for me. If you can embrace that and say, everything is working out for me when you spend time doing the work. This is the current version that I'm in, helping me along the way to the vision. It's going to have iterations along the way. Embrace the failure. You can go back to Thomas and Edison and the light bulb, or whoever it is, or whatever thing it is. And this wasn't one version. I nailed it. This took a lot of time in the lab, a lot of failure, and that's how you get to success.
Well, it took more than working on this. That's the thing that I think people miss. It took 10 versions to get to this cell phone of this model.
Yes.
But it took failed models. It took, we didn't even know what this was going to be. And this turned into this, and that turned into that. And the big thing is about your mind state in that space, which, if you want to know the secret sauce to Think 3D or whatever it is that we do, is that we are not waiting for the other shoe to drop. We are not running around here waiting for something to go wrong. If we're doing it, to do it. Yeah, if we're doing it, it's because we think it will work. So if something doesn't work, it's news to me.
For sure.
Right? It happens, and you deal with it, and you manage it. But nobody here is waiting for something to go wrong. Nobody says, man, we've had 8 quarters of growth. Something has to be going to go wrong here soon. No. At the same time, you're always trying to evolve, and you're always trying to get better, which generally keeps you from being vulnerable to those blind spots, keeps you from being vulnerable to some of those other things. And you can't see everything, so you're going to take your lumps. But nobody's here is waiting for something to go bad. Nobody's waiting for a bad day to happen. And we're not always having good days. We're just always trying to.
Yeah. In those versions, this is one of the things we talk about. This is embracing failure, or I'll call it redefining failure, because in school, you only can fail at something that you've been taught and you didn't get. We haven't failed in our business. We learned. We learning a lot, right? But again, we either win or we learn. Right. And so again, we're doing a lot of things, as Vania said. We believe that it's going to work. Could it be, if I could go back in time to do it over again? Yeah, we do it differently. But that's from the knowledge of knowing now. I didn't fail, I learned. If I didn't learn, then I failed.
For sure.
And so again, whatever that is along your pathway of versions towards the vision, embrace learning. What did you learn from every circumstance? And that just frees people so much up from, again, failure. You can hear it till you're blue in the face. The people that we admire, they went through these things, and they again had to experience these things that got them to the place where they want to go. So take that pressure off yourself, and again, embrace the learning process.
That's what it takes. So that's the word for today. Make sure you're casting the vision. Make sure it's including the people that you need with you, that you want around you. Make sure that you know how to vision and versions. Make sure that you can adjust with what's happening in the world, and make sure you stay focused on what it is that you're trying to achieve, and work yourself through this crisis through the power of culture. So that's the word for today. As always, you can follow us on at letsthinkthree.com, on all of our socials, Think3D Solutions. Make sure you like, follow, and share. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time.